Dust coated Amelia's throat as she stood alone on the Silver Creek station platform. The Montana sun beat down mercilessly, nothing like the genteel warmth of Boston springs. Her corset dampened with sweat beneath layers of travel-worn fabric. 5 hours waiting, and still no Thomas Blackwood. The station master's pitying glances stung worse than the sun. She clutched the daguerreotype tighter, thumb tracing the stern face of her betrothed, a man she knew only through carefully penned letters promising salvation from destitution after her father's death. "Nothing," she whispered, scanning the empty horizon where heat rippled like water. Her father's voice echoed in memory. "Sometimes, Amelia, practicality must trump sentiment." She'd been practical, hadn't she? Answering an advertisement for a mail-order bride when creditors claimed their Boston home and former friends turned cold. The clip-clop of approaching hooves snapped her attention upward. A lone rider materialized from the heat haze, silhouetted against the brutal sky. Not the stagecoach she'd expected. One man, one horse. The rider dismounted with fluid grace, dust clouding around worn boots. Younger than the photograph suggested. Same Blackwood features, but softened somehow. His eyes, startlingly blue, assessed her with quiet intensity. "Miss Foster?" He removed his hat, revealing dark hair damp with sweat. "I'm Ethan Blackwood, Thomas's brother." The bottom dropped from her stomach. "Your brother couldn't come himself?" Something flickered across his face. Regret? Embarrassment? "There's been an accident at the ranch." His voice was lower than Thomas's confident tenor from her imagination. "Nothing for you to worry about, but he couldn't get away." The station master snorted softly behind her. "The journey to Blackwood Ranch is 3 days," Ethan continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "We'll need to camp along the way." Propriety screamed against it. Unchaperoned with a man she'd just met, her reputation would be in tatters if anyone from Boston discovered it. But Boston was 2,000 miles behind her. "I see," she said, voice steadier than she felt. Ethan nodded, relief softening his features. He lifted her valise effortlessly, then offered his hand to help her mount. His palm was calloused against her gloved fingers, nothing like the soft-handed professors and merchants she'd known. The warmth of him transferred through the thin fabric, solid and steady. From horseback, the vast emptiness of Montana stretched before her, beautiful and terrifying in its immensity. No buildings, no barriers, just open space and possibilities. Amelia swallowed hard. She'd made her first frontier decision, trusting this quiet stranger with eyes that couldn't hide their honesty, even when his words seemed carefully measured. Behind them, Silver Creek Station diminished with each hoofbeat, swallowed by the landscape like it had never existed at all. Their first campsite nestled beside a creek that sang over smooth stones. Amelia watched Ethan's practiced movements, striking flint, feeding kindling, arranging cookware. No wasted motion, no hesitation. "Thomas never mentioned you in his letters," she ventured, breaking hours of silence. Ethan's hands stilled momentarily. "Thomas sees what benefits Thomas." The fire caught, casting his face in amber light and shadow. Something about his profile against the darkening sky made her breath catch. "Is the ranch as he described? 8 rooms and glass windows?" "The house is grand enough." Ethan poured coffee into a tin cup. "My brother spared no expense on appearances." His emphasis on the last word hung between them. Dawn broke with birdsong and mist rising from the creek. Amelia woke to find Ethan already saddling horses, the planes of his back visible through his damp shirt as he worked. The second day brought rain, fat, heavy drops that drummed against the wide brim of the hat Ethan had wordlessly placed on her head. Their path skirted a swollen river, muddy water churning against its banks. "We'll need to cross here," Ethan said, frowning at the rapids. "Hold tight to the saddle horn. If you feel yourself slipping, call out immediately." Water surged around her horse's belly, shockingly cold where it splashed her skirts. Halfway across, her mount stumbled on unseen rocks. Amelia gasped as she lurched sideways. Ethan's hand shot out, strong fingers circling her wrist like iron. "I've got you." Their eyes locked. Something electric passed between them that had nothing to do with danger. That night, a storm drove them to an abandoned trapper's cabin. Wind howled through cracks in the rough-hewn logs. Ethan insisted on sleeping in the tiny attached stable. "Tell me about the mountains," she requested, as they shared beans warmed over the meager fire. His face transformed, hardness melting. They turned purple at sunset, like God dipped his brush in wine. He smiled, surprising her with the way it reached his eyes. "In spring, wildflowers carpet the lower meadows, blue lupine and yellow balsam root, so many it hurts your eyes to look." Lightning illuminated the small cabin, casting his face in stark white. Thunder followed immediately, rattling the door. "And Thomas? Does he love the mountains too?" Ethan's smile faded. "Thomas sees the ranch as a stepping stone, something to leverage for status in town." "And what do you see when you look at it?" She hadn't meant to whisper. His eyes met hers across the fire. "Home," he said simply. "The only one I've ever known." Amelia pulled her blanket tighter, suddenly cold despite the fire. The word home echoed in her mind, stirring a longing deeper than she'd ever known in Boston's brick-lined streets. They crested the final hill at midday. Below them, Blackwood Ranch spread across the valley floor, a sprawling operation of fenced pastures, outbuildings, and grazing cattle. At its center stood a white clapboard house, impressive against the backdrop of distant mountains. "It's beautiful," Amelia breathed. "Yes." Ethan's voice was soft. When she turned, she found him looking not at the ranch, but at her. Heat rose to her cheeks as she quickly faced forward. As they approached, a figure emerged onto the wide front porch. Even at a distance, Thomas Blackwood cut an impressive figure, tall like his brother, but broader through the shoulders, dressed in a tailored suit that would have looked at home on Boston's Beacon Hill. "Miss Foster," his voice boomed across the yard as they dismounted. "Welcome to your new home." Up close, Thomas was handsome in a conventional way, clean-shaven, where Ethan wore a shadow of stubble, hair pomaded into submission where his brother's caught the breeze. He smelled of bay rum cologne that couldn't quite mask whiskey beneath. "I trust my brother took good care of you." Thomas took her gloved hand, pressing it longer than propriety dictated. "He did," she answered, acutely aware of Ethan unloading her valise behind them. Thomas didn't even glance at his brother. "Excellent. Come inside. You must be exhausted." The house was indeed grand. Polished floors, wallpapered parlor, even a piano in the corner. But something felt hollow about the opulence. The furniture seemed barely used, arranged like a stage set. "Your room is upstairs," Thomas gestured. "You'll meet the staff at dinner." Through the window, she watched Ethan lead the horses toward the stable, his shoulders set in a rigid line. Dinner brought her face to face with Josiah Hawkins, Hawk, as everyone called him. The black foreman's weathered face and missing fingers spoke of a lifetime of hard work, but his eyes held sharp intelligence. "Miss Foster," he acknowledged with a slight nod. "Hope the journey treated you kindly?" "Mr. Hawkins has been with Blackwood Ranch since my father's time," Thomas explained, "practically part of the inventory." Something flashed in Hawk's eyes. "Been here long enough to remember when all we had was a lean-to and 20 head of sorry cattle?" "Ancient history," Thomas waved dismissively. "We're the largest operation in 3 counties now." "Thanks to your brother's work with the herd," Hawk added pointedly. Thomas's smile tightened. "Ethan does have a way with animals." Later, from her bedroom window, Amelia watched lamplight glow in a distant cabin near the north pasture, Ethan's solitary domain. Between them lay the vast ranch operations, men moving between bunkhouse and barn, smoke rising from the cookhouse chimney. 2 separate worlds under the same big sky. Thomas's domain of appearance and ambition. Ethan's world of honest work and quiet integrity. She pressed her palm against the cool glass, wondering which world would become her home. 2 weeks passed in a blur of contradictions. The ranch house gleamed with polished surfaces and fine furnishings, yet felt oddly empty. Thomas spoke endlessly of marriage plans while spending most days in town on business, returning with liquor on his breath and cards hidden in his pockets. Amelia stood in the kitchen garden, soil dark beneath her fingernails, a shocking development that would have horrified her Boston acquaintances. The cook, Mrs. Perkins, had shown her how to tell when the carrots were ready. "Miss Foster," Ethan's voice startled her. He stood at the garden gate, hat in hand, sunlight catching the angles of his face. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't." She brushed dirt from her apron, suddenly self-conscious. "I was just learning," he finished, a hint of approval warming his voice. "The garden was my mother's pride. She believed a person should know where their food comes from." Thomas mentioned she was from back east, like me. "Philadelphia society. She gave it up for my father, though I think she always missed it." He hesitated. "I'm mending the north fence today. Would you like to see more of the ranch operations?" The invitation thrilled her more than it should have. Atop a gentle rise, they watched ranch hands moving cattle between pastures. The air smelled of sage and sun-warmed grass. Hawk directed the operation with subtle hand signals, his voice carrying on the breeze. "What are they doing?" Amelia asked. "Rotating the herd to fresh grass. Hawk taught me how to read the land, where it needs rest, where it can sustain grazing." Ethan's face softened with admiration. "He knows this land better than any of us." Thomas never mentions the actual workings of the ranch. Something hardened in Ethan's expression. "My brother prefers ledgers to livestock." "Are those ledgers accurate?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Ethan's sharp look confirmed her growing suspicions. The sudden thunder of approaching hooves interrupted them. Thomas appeared, his face stormy beneath his town hat. "There you are," he snapped. "I've been looking everywhere." His gaze flicked between them, cold with suspicion. "I hardly think fence mending is appropriate entertainment for my fiancé, brother." "I asked to see the ranch," Amelia countered. Thomas's laugh held no warmth. "The ranch is just the means, my dear. Our future lies in society, not dirt and cattle." That night, voices carried through the house, Thomas and Ethan arguing in the study. "You're bleeding the ranch dry." Ethan's usually controlled voice rose in frustration. "I'm building connections that matter," Thomas retorted. "This backwater operation is just the beginning." "It's our heritage." "It's my property," Thomas cut in. "Don't forget who holds the deed." Later, with Thomas snoring in his room down the hall, Amelia slipped into the study. The desk drawer yielded ledgers showing mounting debts, loans against the ranch, and money siphoned to gambling debts in 3 different towns. The foundation of her new life was built on quicksand. "I'll return with silk for your wedding dress," Thomas announced over breakfast, not meeting her eyes. "Helena has the finest selections." Amelia nodded, the ledger's damning figures still burning in her mind. 1 month until their wedding, and every day revealed another crack in Thomas's carefully constructed facade. "Take care of things while I'm gone, brother," Thomas clapped Ethan's shoulder with false camaraderie. "Don't I always?" Ethan's response held no warmth. The ranch transformed in Thomas's absence. Without his looming presence, Amelia found herself drawn to the daily rhythms of work, helping Mrs. Perkins preserve vegetables, observing Hawk's skillful handling of horses in the corral. On the 3rd day, disaster struck. A section of creekside grazing land flooded, stranding cattle on a rapidly shrinking island of dry ground. "We need every hand," Hawk shouted, already mounted. Before she could think, Amelia hitched up her skirts and climbed onto a horse. Ethan's surprised expression quickly shifted to determination as he tossed her a coiled rope. "Stay behind me. Follow my lead." Hours blurred in mud and exertion. Amelia's muscles screamed as she helped guide panicked cattle to safety. Rain plastered her hair to her face, her fine dress ruined beyond repair. Yet something fierce and alive bloomed in her chest. Purpose, belonging, pride. After, bone-tired but exhilarated, she sat beside Ethan on the porch steps, steam rising from coffee mugs in the evening coolness. "You surprised everyone today," he said quietly, "including myself." She laughed, then winced at her tender palms, blistered from rope work. Without asking, Ethan took her hands in his, examining the raw skin. His touch sent warmth spiraling up her arms. "You don't belong with him," he whispered, then immediately pulled back, face shuddering. "I'm sorry, that was—" "The truth?" Their eyes locked, something electric passing between them. The moment shattered as Hawk approached, his expression uncharacteristically troubled. "Miss Foster, there's something you should know about Thomas." Hawk's voice was low, measured. There are patterns a wise woman recognizes before it's too late. Later, drawn by some unnamed pull, she walked alone to the north pasture as sunset painted the mountains in shades of purple, exactly as Ethan had described that night in the trapper's cabin. She sensed rather than heard him approach. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Ethan said, stopping beside her. "I'm not anymore." She turned to face him. The naked emotion in his eyes stole her breath. "Amelia, Ryder coming in," a distant shout interrupted. They turned to see a wagon approaching, a woman in plain dress. A small boy clutched to her side. "Martha Sullivan," Hawk identified her as they hurried back. "From Butte." The red-haired woman jumped down before the wagon fully stopped, her face tight with determination. "Where is he?" she demanded, scanning the assembled ranch hands. "Where's Thomas Blackwood?" "He's away on business," Amelia replied. "I'm his fiancée." Martha's bitter laugh cut like glass. "Fiancée? That's what I was, too." She thrust forward the child, dark-haired, blue-eyed, unmistakably a Blackwood. "Meet his son." Silence crashed like thunder across the ranch yard. The boy, Thomas's son, clung to Martha's skirts, his eyes, Blackwood blue, wide with confusion. "He promised to marry me," Martha continued, her Irish accent thickening with emotion. "Sent money sometimes, never enough. 2 years I've waited, while he played businessman. Amelia felt the ground tilt beneath her. She gripped the porch railing, knuckles white. Inside, Hawk murmured, guiding Martha and the child toward the kitchen door, away from curious ranch hands. Amelia fled to her room, humiliation burning her cheeks. The wedding sampler she'd been stitching mocked her from the bedside table. Through the window, she saw Ethan standing alone in the yard, face lifted to the darkening sky, as though seeking answers from the emerging stars. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "May I come in?" Ethan's voice, hesitant. She opened the door, beyond caring about propriety. "Did you know?" Pain flashed across his features. "I suspected. Thomas has patterns." "Why didn't you warn me?" Her voice cracked. "I tried." His hands clenched at his sides. Every careful word about my brother on our journey, every story about the ranch that contradicted his letters. He met her gaze directly. "I was bound by loyalty to my brother, but I couldn't bring you here under complete deception." "Half-truths aren't much better than lies, Ethan." "I know." The raw honesty in his voice disarmed her anger. "I've been half-living my entire life, caught between what I owe my family and what I know is right." A ranch hand's hurried footsteps interrupted them. "Telegram from Helena. Urgent." The yellow paper trembled in Ethan's hands as he read. Blackwood seen boarding eastbound train. Significant bank withdrawals. Forged documents. "He's gone," Ethan whispered. "He's not coming back." The next morning brought the bank representative, a thin man with cold eyes who explained in precise terms that Thomas had mortgaged the ranch to its limit. Foreclosure is inevitable unless the debts are paid in full within 30 days. After he left, Amelia found a note hidden in Thomas's dresser drawer, hastily written, "Circumstances require my immediate departure. The ranch has become a burden rather than an asset. Miss Foster will understand. Our arrangement was always one of mutual benefit, now rendered impractical. TB asterisk. Not even her name, just Miss Foster. No apology for the abandoned child. No acknowledgement of his betrayal." She found Ethan in the stables before dawn, saddling his horse. "You're leaving," she stated, not a question. "There's nothing left." His voice was hollow. "The ranch will be sold. I have no right to ask you to endure more of this family's failures." "So you're running too?" Anger flared unexpectedly. "Like Thomas?" "I'm nothing like Thomas." His eyes flashed. "Prove it." She stepped closer. "Prove you're not a man who abandons what matters when things get difficult." His breath caught. "What matters to you, Amelia?" The question hung between them, heavier than all of Thomas's broken promises. Dawn painted the stable in hushed gold. Leather creaked as Ethan's hand stilled on the saddle. "What matters to me?" Amelia repeated, her voice steadier than her hammering heart. "Not status or security, not anymore." "Then what?" His eyes searched hers. "Honesty, purpose." She stepped closer, close enough to catch his scent. Leather and pine and something uniquely him. "You." The word hung between them, impossible to take back. "I have nothing to offer you," he whispered. "No ranch, no fortune, just my hands and my word." "I've had fine promises before." She touched his cheek, feeling the stubble rough against her palm. "I'd rather have honest work and a man whose eyes don't lie." Outside, the ranch was waking, rooster crowing, cookhouse chimney beginning to smoke. Their world collapsing, yet life continued. The stable door creaked open. Martha stood silhouetted against the sunrise, her son's hand in hers. "Sorry to interrupt." Her voice held no shyness. "But I've got papers. Proof Thomas forged my name, too. Might give you leverage with the bank." Hawk appeared behind her. "And I've got savings. Not enough to save it all, but maybe a start." "No." Ethan's decision settled across his features. This ranch was my father's dream, not mine. He looked at Amelia. "Maybe it's time for our own dream." "North," she suggested, remembering stories from their journey. "Unclaimed land near the border." "Nothing but wilderness," Hawk warned. Amelia smiled. "We've faced worse." 3 days later, they stood before the ranch house one last time. The bank would auction it within the month. Martha had already left for the growing town nearby, determined to establish her seamstress shop. Hawk surprised them all by choosing to join their northern venture. "Too old to break in a new boss," he grumbled, fooling no one. "My father would have understood," Ethan said quietly as they mounted up. "He built something from nothing once. So can we." The journey north mirrored their first journey together, yet everything had changed. Now, when their hands touched passing a coffee cup, neither pulled away. When Amelia's hair came loose from its pins, Ethan's gaze lingered openly. When night fell, they spoke of future plans rather than past wounds. They found their valley as autumn painted the landscape gold and crimson. A clear creek bisected rich grazing land, sheltered by low hills. "Home," Amelia breathed, the word no longer hollow. That night, beneath stars so bright they cast shadows, Hawk discreetly made his camp downstream, leaving them alone beside their campfire. "Not exactly what you imagined when you left Boston," Ethan said. "Better." She took his hand, work roughened like hers now. "I was promised to your brother, but I chose you." "And I choose you," he whispered against her lips, "every day." Above them, the Montana sky stretched endless with possibility, as wide and deep as the love they'd found in the ruins of broken promises. 5 years later, a lone rider approached their thriving homestead. The cabin expanded now, a barn and corrals housing their growing herd. Ethan shaded his eyes against the setting sun. "We have a visitor." Amelia joined him on the porch, their shoulders touching. The rider drew closer, revealing a face older and harder than they remembered, but unmistakably Thomas Blackwood. "He doesn't recognize it," Ethan realized. "Doesn't know this is our place." Amelia slipped her hand into his. "What shall we do?" Ethan studied his brother, the man who had nearly destroyed them, now dusty and diminished. Offer him one night's shelter, he decided. Food and rest before he moves on. That's more than he deserves, but it's who we are. Ethan's eyes held the quiet wisdom hard-won through their journey together, not defined by him or his betrayals anymore. As Thomas approached, they stood together, not the people they had been when his actions shattered their world, but stronger for having rebuilt it together, piece by piece, choice by choice, love by love.